So today we're discussing a topic that usually doesn't get much attention at COPs, but this year food is definitely on the table. So we've already had a major food and agriculture declaration endorsed by more than 130 world leaders, and we'll probably refer to that throughout the conversation. But just to launch into things, quite a few years ago, we had a US president that said that America is addicted to oil. And looking at meat consumption patterns, like over the past 50 years or whatever, I wonder if the same thing can be applied in the food space. Is the world addicted to beef? And if so, what should we be doing about that, considering the climate impact? Dhanush, you've been thinking about this a lot, so why don't we start with you?
Yeah, thanks, Siobhan, and thanks for setting that scene with the Emirates Food Systems Declaration, which is really great. You know, food is on the table. 134 countries have signed it. But my question is, are we discussing the right issues in such a declaration, right? So for example, it doesn't refer to the need for dietary shifts, which is, we know, is important. It has to be done. It's unpleasant. Livestock is a big business. It's a 900 billion a year business. And there are interests within that business which stops a shift. But we know that it has to change. So I don't think it's an either-or question. I'm not saying people shouldn't stop eating meat. It's cultural, it's nutritious. You know, people will eat meat, but we need to also reduce our consumption while also improving ways in which we produce meat. So for me, it's like we kind of have to find that balance between how do we produce meat and the alternatives to it. And in a policy fora like the COP, it's a cow in the room, right? So we need to be calling things out, and we need a transformation in that sector.
Yeah, and Pilar, obviously, Cargill being a major meat producer, so how are you guys tackling this problem?
So first and foremost, thank you for the opportunity to participate in this event and share the stage with Dhanush and Aadith. Great to be here today. So I think we need to think about that question in the context of food security, and let me just give you an example. I grew up in Bogota, Colombia, in the 80s and the 90s, during probably one of the most violent times in the history of my country. And during that time, I saw a lot of poverty, inequalities, and most importantly, malnutrition and food insecurity. It was really hard for people to get access to affordable and safe and nutritious food. And the situation today from a food security perspective is not getting any better in Colombia. The country is in a much better place today, but from a food security perspective, it's not getting any better. Food security is impacting not only Colombia, but many countries in Latin America, Africa, Southeast Asia, and many countries around the world. And let me share a staggering statistics. Today, and think about this for a second, 750 million people like you and I go to sleep hungry because they don't have access to food. In addition to that, by 2050, the world is going to have 2 billion additional people that we need to feed within planetary boundaries, protecting the planet and protecting the people and the natural resources that we have in the world today. So we constantly think about that question every single day in our company. How do we feed a growing population while at the same time we protect the planet and reduce the environmental impact? And it's not an easy question. As it relates to protein and beef more specifically, we know that protein is an important element that allows us to live a healthy life and a nutritious or longer life, if you will. So for Cargill, we are fully committed to making investments that allow us to make the food and agriculture sectors more sustainable, and more specifically to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions within the beef industry, particularly in North America, which is where we operate. 3 years ago, we introduced one of our flagship programs, which is Beef Up, and through the investments of sustainable grazing practices, as well as projects that allow ranchers in North America to reduce the use of natural resources, such as water, increase carbon sequestration, and protect biodiversity. And we made a commitment through that program to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in North America in the beef industry by 30% by 2030. We have partnered with companies such as McDonald's and Target and Nestle, as well as NGOs, strategic partner NGOs for Cargill, such as the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. And I can tell you today that the projects that we have implemented through Beef Up have demonstrated a reduction of 2 million metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions, which is huge. But we also know that consumers want choices, particularly choices that are more sustainable as it relates to protein. So we also make investments in sustainable production of poultry around the world. And we also support sustainable production of seafood. In the aqua nutrition business that I used to run a few years ago, we introduced our flagship program, which is See Further, and we make investments in technology and R&D that allows to reduce the environmental footprint of salmon production in the world by 30% by 2030. So when you think about the investments that we are making, it's all about providing more sustainable choices, increasing food security, and also investing in alternative sources of protein. So Cargill has invested in cultivated meat in our partnerships with a company called Aleph Farms and also Upside Foods, because we believe we need to provide consumers with choices, as well as the investment that we have made with a company called Puris in pea protein to make sure that, again, we provide more sustainable choices, healthier choices for a critical element in the human diet, which is protein. So I believe that we are making a difference in increasing food security and protecting the planet.
Right. And Aadith, your company works with farmers on various different solutions. And so how are you trying to tackle this problem through your company?
So at Boomitra, we work with farmers around the world, especially in the global south, and helping them to improve their soils and improve their incomes as well through carbon credits or other means. So it really starts from the ground up and from the grassroots level. I think that is an important thing. There's many potential solutions and potential practices and potential things that can be done, but they have to be, of course, incentivized in the right way, and the uptake has to be correct on the ground level. So we work with farmers around the world alongside many different partners, including agribusinesses, NGOs, for-profits, even institutions like the World Food Program, together with them to work with the farmers to adopt improved practices on their farms. And as they do these practices, there's a dual benefit. There's a benefit of achieving carbon sequestration and as a result mitigating emissions or removing emissions, but there's also a side benefit of improving yields, making the systems more sustainable, especially with climate change. I talk to farmers all the time. We work with 150,000 plus farmers worldwide, and every single farmer of ours that we have talked to, they know that climate change is real. It's affecting them right now. And if you talk to them, they'll tell you their fathers, mothers, grandfathers, grandmothers all experience different weather patterns than the ones that are currently actually existing. So it's real, it's there. The farmers are willing to work if we are able to provide the right resources and the right incentives to make it happen, and that's what we do. So today, just to summarize, we work with about 5 million plus acres around the world in croplands and grasslands across 150,000 plus farmers who have collectively sequestered nearly a bit more than 10 million tons out of the atmosphere. But we're just getting started, because in order to truly transform food systems, we need to be doing this on a gigaton scale, not a 10 megaton scale. We need to do it on a gigaton scale, and you do it with the vast majority of farmers of all sizes, from 1 acre farmers to 100,000 acre plus farmers. So we work across that spectrum and are trying to make that happen throughout the world.
Right. So just to change gears, I came across a statistic this year that I was not aware of before, and it surprised me, that almost a third of all food produced is never eaten. So what can be done to fix this disconnect? And Pilar, I know that Cargill has some projects in the works with this, and maybe you can tell us a bit about that.
I think it is a real problem in the world today. I mentioned earlier today that the world has about 750 million people that go to sleep hungry, yet in the meantime, 30% of the food that is produced in the world goes to waste. So it's something that we constantly think about, not only as it relates to our own operations, where we focus on reducing waste. At the plant level, our plant managers, our employees are fully committed to reducing food waste at the plant level. But most importantly, we are using our technologies, our expertise, and our talent to develop solutions that allow us to take waste and turn it into something meaningful. So think about the concept of circular economy, but doing it at scale. And let me just give you a couple of examples. So last year, we opened up a plant in Belgium, in Ghent, Belgium, with state-of-the-art technology that allows us to take waste, food waste, specifically oils, liquid oils, that otherwise could go to waste, and we turn it into biofuels that we are using today in transportation, particularly in Europe, to move food from places where it is produced to places where it's needed. So the full circular economy concept of taking waste, turn it into biofuels, so we can move food from places where it's produced to places where it's needed. And the second example, which I think is really interesting and fascinating, is the fact that we are partnering with Nestle, one of our strategic customers, and we are piloting a concept that takes cocoa shells that, again, otherwise would go to waste, and turn it into low-carbon fertilizer. We are piloting this project and this technology with incredible successes so far, and we intend to scale up these solutions so we can use it with farmers in the UK and Ireland. So again, the concept of turning waste into something productive and meaningful in a way that we increase food security is a priority for our company.
And Dhanush, I know this is something also that you think a lot about. So what do you think that can be done to solve this disconnect between, producing so much food that we actually don't end up eating?
Yeah, and my organization, Clim-Eat, we particularly work in low and middle income countries. So the irony is that in the more developed world, food is actually wasted at the consumer end, whereas in developing countries, the loss is happening post-harvest while getting to market. So often that's because you don't have right storage systems, infrastructure to bring products to markets and so on. So I think we need two sets of interventions. So like maybe where waste is occurring at the consumer end, you need sort of technologies to process the waste and use it differently. Yep. You need consumer awareness so people are buying as much as they need or not wasting so much. But in the other spectrum, when you're working in the developing world, thinking about what are those solutions across that supply chain that we can apply. Are there cold storage systems that are needed? Are there better ways to get products to market? So there's a whole suite of solutions which are slightly different. And we need to address both of these to tackle that. It's huge. And just to make people think, it's not just food that we are wasting and emissions we are creating. Into food goes fertilizer, into food goes fossil fuels, it's also work and subsidies. All of this is being wasted. So it's a huge savings in many different respects.
Yeah. And Aadith, actually, with you, I'd kind of like to kind of flip the question a bit, which is, here we are talking about too much food, and one of the problems with climate change is that it's creating a situation with too little food, with the way that droughts are impacting and yields. And so you were mentioning that you work with farmers to help them increase yields, and I'm wondering how you're helping them adapt to climate change, especially with something that you will promote, which is, I think it's called soil decarbonization. And maybe you can explain.
Soil carbon sequestration.
Soil carbonization, sorry. Recarbonization, excuse me.
Recarbonization.
Yeah, that's right. So, sorry,
yeah.
Yes. So please explain how that works. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Farmers we work with are able to adopt a variety of different practices. They can range from simple practices like composting, mulching, all the way to more complicated ways to manage their crop residues, all the way to soil amendments, soil biologicals and other things. It's a spectrum. But this spectrum, as farmers adopt these practices, they are able to improve many things. One of those things is soil carbon levels. And as the soil carbon levels improve, that's actually a carbon sequestration. If the carbon goes from here to here, that's a carbon sequestration. But furthermore, the soil has more nutrients in it. It can hold nutrients more effectively. It can hold moisture more effectively. It's more resilient as a result to all sorts of conditions, including, for example, droughts. There's many farmers around the world who, for example, don't have access to irrigation. Having higher soil carbon levels for them is like essential. If you don't have irrigation, then you're just relying on rains showing up, and when they show up, your soil has to be able to hold as much of it as possible. So there's many benefits to improving soil carbon levels, and by doing this, we are not only sequestering carbon, but we're also leading to very nice outcomes for the farmers, such as improved yields and those kinds of outcomes. And the key point is these farms that produce more yields now, they're also more carbon efficient. The carbon intensity of the crops that have been produced from those farms is way lower. So it's better for all of us to be consuming those crops. But secondly, it's also better because recent scientific studies have also shown that those crops produced from higher soil carbon fields have higher nutritional value. So this is a unique instance where in our food system, there's actually an opportunity to link human health with planetary health, with societal health, and all of that together. It all comes together.
And Pilar, I wanted to ask you, because I know Cargill is supporting adaptation projects, but do you think that they can be scaled and deployed at a fast enough rate to kind of avert sort of these short to medium term food price rises that we might be expecting? And what can we expect in terms of food prices, do you think, in the short to medium term, especially we're now in an El Nino period and all that? Are we just going to see more volatility, or is there any insider? What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, so we really don't set prices. We actually work with retailers, food manufacturing companies, and farmers, so we don't really set prices. But what I can tell you is that the answer is yes. There's a lot of things that we are doing today to make investments with the farmers at the farm level, again, to allow them to do more with less, to be more efficient, more productive, more effective, in a way that we are all mitigating the impact of climate change, inflation, supply chain disruptions, energy dependency. There's so many challenges that the world is dealing with today that is super important that we begin where the food system begins, to increase resiliency of the soil, and that is working with the farms or the farmers and making investments to allow them to be more successful. There's a couple maybe of specific examples that we have in our company to do that, and again, to ultimately support a growing population with food that is safe and affordable, and that is regenerative agriculture, which is a suite of solutions, including no-till, agroforestry practices, reduced till at the farm level to increase the resiliency of the soil. And we have implemented several different programs, particularly in North America, our Region Connect program, which is our commitment to adopt regenerative agricultural practices in 10 million acres in North America. We are already seeing successful results related to increasing yields, productivity, as well as the income at the farm level. And this is the kind of practices that we need to implement to support sustainable production of agriculture and increasing food security.
Yeah. And Aadith, I wanted to go back to you because I wanted to ask another question, because you touched on the fact that your company, the kind of financial model around the projects that you do relies on carbon markets. And I know that, carbon markets or carbon credits have kind of had a bit of a rough year. There's been some sort of bad eggs out there. And so do you feel that there are some bad actors in the market that are tarnishing the whole thing? And what should be done about that?
Yeah, I think now is actually a very interesting time in the carbon markets, actually at this COP right now. So for context, if you may have missed it, at Boomitra, we have the farmers improve the soils, and then we use satellites and AI to measure soil carbon levels and then get it third-party certified into carbon credits, which we then sell to corporations and governments worldwide. And that is our business model, and we also drive the majority of that back to the farmers as an additional income for them. So we are deeply embedded in the carbon markets as something called a project developer. But we also, of course, work directly with the farmers, and we also work directly with the clients, the buyers of the credits. What we are observing right now is very interesting. We think that the market is actually shifting both from a supply perspective and a demand perspective simultaneously. The same people who are buying credits like 2-3 years ago are not the ones who are actually buying credits right now. It's very different folks, but they exist. There are still people buying credits, and the same projects supplying credits are not necessarily the ones that are supplying the majority of credits 2-3 years ago. Like our category of soil carbon sequestration was still a very niche topic even like a few years ago, like 3, 4, 5 years ago. People weren't talking much about it, but now, of course, many folks are talking about it, including the folks on our panel here. So it's the markets themselves in relation to the carbon markets even are evolving very fast. There's there's previous suppliers, there's new suppliers now, and there's previous demand sources, there's new demand sources now. Now, of course, there have been issues around integrity in the markets, but if you think about it, the markets before used to be very less diversified, mostly around avoided deforestation and cookstoves and renewable energy. Now we're seeing a massive amount of diversification. There's agriculture, and just within agriculture, there's soil carbon sequestration, there's also methane avoidance, many other subcategories even within agriculture of potential for decarbonization that's being potentially unlocked by the carbon markets. And just this week, actually, there's been many announcements by the CFTC, the Commodities Futures Trading Commission in the United States, to the Integrity Council for the Voluntary Carbon Market and the Voluntary Carbon Markets Initiative and other organizations, major announcements around the carbon market. So I think we will see a huge uptick now after this COP. There's already been a shift, and for example, for us, we have not necessarily seen a decline in demand ever, but now we're going to see a further acceleration for the overall market post this COP. That is what we think.
Great. Well, we actually don't have that much time, so I guess I just want to circle back to the beginning where we mentioned this food and agriculture declaration that had been made. I wanted to get your thoughts from all of you. What did you think about it? Did it offer what you, did it deliver anything you came here to get from COP, or what more do you hope to see? Dhanush, do you want to take it first? How do you feel about,
So this is my 8th COP, so I've been going to COPs quite some time, and every COP there is a new COP presidency initiative. COP21 in Paris had one on soils, COP22 in Marrakesh had one on adaptation in agriculture. The list goes on, but many times, they die off after you have that perfect group photo with the leaders.
Yeah.
Sometimes they survive because they've been created. But one thing is for sure, I've not seen any COP initiative actually deliver change. So I'm becoming skeptical that these kind of big declarations will create the change.
Great.
That's one skeptic side. But on the other hand, the change is in our hands. Like we can change our diets, we can implement projects which are innovative. So there are lots of opportunities out there. So we should take the policy signal, but not wait for the policy makers to actually make the change, because they make policies, we make change.
Great. Pilar, did you have a quick thought on the announcement?
It has been a very productive week. We have been really busy actively engaging with customers, government officials, NGOs, and partners to think about, again, our ambition, our purpose to nourish the world and to do it in a safe, responsible, and sustainable way. I am optimistic. We are optimistic. I have seen a lot of what I call the 3 A's into place: ambition, accountability, and action. And that's what I think it is important to drive meaningful change, not only to set ambitious goals, but also to make investments and to see companies and the private and public sector heavily investing in driving for a more productive, prosperous, safe, and world and communities ultimately, but also a more sustainable world. So I'm optimistic, and it's been a busy week for us, but a very productive week.
Great. Do we have time? Okay, well, that's it for us, but thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.